I have 17 years of law enforcement experience. 8 of those years as criminal investigator. I'm going to react today to this true crime documentary, the murder of Jonathon Hoffman. I know nothing about this case. It's totally what they call a blind reaction. I'm going to tell from a law enforcement point of view what I think is going on investigation-wise, what they're doing, how they're doing it, and let's get into it.
This elderly lady might look like a sweet old grandma, but she's living proof that there's no age limit when it comes to evil. If it hadn't been for a 911 call that caught every second of her victim's harrowing last moments, she might have gotten away with murder. And her victim? That would be her very own grandson.
Okay, how did you get shot?
My grandma shot me.
Your grandma and grandpa shot you?
My grandma. I'm gonna die. Help.
This is the twisted case of Jonathon Hoffman, PM on the 18th of May 2012, when Max Dashevsky receives a worrying call from his good friend Jonathon Hoffman. The two are seniors at Farmington Central High School, an alternative high school in the upscale neighborhood of West Bloomfield Township near Detroit, Michigan, where they have been friends since the 9th grade.
We met 9th grade in Miss Lanning's class, which was an English class. We met because I sat by him, and he looks at me, he's like, "Do you like Tupac?" I'm like, "Yeah, I like Tupac." And then Ethan was really good friends with him.
Jonathon confesses to Max that he's just failed a court-ordered drug test, a condition of probation that he's been on since police found marijuana in his vehicle 2 months earlier. Jonathon is worried. His grandmother's condo since his parents' divorce and relocation to Arizona 10 months earlier. Initially, he had gone with his parents, but within weeks of their arrival, the family had received a devastating blow. His younger sister, Jessica, had been diagnosed with a benign brain tumor requiring multiple surgeries and ongoing medical treatment. Between a new school and his sister's illness, Jonathon had been miserable. So, when his grandmother, Sarah, suggested that he return to West Bloomfield and stay with her while he finished his final year back at Farmington, he had been ecstatic.
He would be happy staying there with his friends and finishing out his last year of high school. And she never, ever once told me that there were issues.
Not everyone had been happy about the new arrangement. Jonathon's father, Michael, a prominent attorney, had seen some unsettling aspects to Sarah's character over the years. A retired school teacher and mother of 5, 74-year-old Sarah could be controlling, meddlesome, and ran a very tight ship. But she and her husband, Fred, age 85, had always doted on Jonathon. And with Jonathon pushing...
Okay, so far, Jonathon's parents got a divorce. They went their own ways. He went with one of them, I don't know which one, and didn't like it, and then now he's going to move in with the grandparents, if I've got that correct. This woman, is this the dad? Jonathon's dad's mom? I don't know. Let me know.
Hard to go back, he eventually agreed. That was 9 months ago, and now Jonathon was back in his element at Farmington High School, where he is known as a class clown. A super smart kid and a whiz with technology, he'd already earned himself a full-ride scholarship to Eastern Michigan University. Above all, friends know him as someone who is always happy-go-lucky, positive and upbeat, which is what makes this particular phone call all the more concerning for Max. Jonathon doesn't sound like his usual self at all. To Max, Jonathon sounds not just worried, but scared. The two friends agree to meet up that night. Jonathon tells Max he'll message him in the next half hour or so to confirm the time that Max can come pick him up. Max waits for that message. A half hour goes by, and there's no word from Jonathon. Max messages, then calls. No one answers. He doesn't know yet, but Jonathon will never answer his phone again. 20 minutes after hanging up from Max, West Bloomfield Township Police receive a 911 call from Brookview Lane, Maple Place Villas. It is the home of Sandra Layne, Jonathon's grandmother.
911, what's your emergency?
I've just been shot.
Where? Who?
I've just been shot.
Where are you at?
63 Brookview Lane.
Brookview in what city?
West Bloomfield.
Okay, how did you get shot? Who shot you?
My grandma shot me.
Your grandma and grandpa shot you?
My grandma. I'm gonna die. Help.
Okay, we're gonna stay on the phone with me, okay, sir? I'm gonna get help on the way. Okay?
Well, we're hearing a young man that's just been shot. Apparently, he said by his grandma, and he's shot. He's able to talk. Being a dispatcher would be a really tough job. I mean, I'm sure they go through this ever so often, but it would be a really rough job, I think.
Where were you shot at? Where are you shot? Your chest?
Yes.
Okay, who are your grandparents still there?
No.
Where did they go?
I don't know.
You don't know where they went. They shot you though, right?
Yes.
Okay, stay on the phone. Okay. Okay, I know we got help on the way. I promise you that. Okay. You said it's in your chest.
Yes.
Okay. Did you get some kind of? Can you walk or are you sitting?
I'm sitting.
Okay. I don't want you to move. Okay. Just keep on breathing.
Wow, for being shot in the chest, he's of his right mind. He's being able to talk. He's being able to answer the questions.
Okay, and it just happened? Are you there?
Hello?
Keep talking to me. Are you there?
No.
Can you keep talking? You can't keep talking to me? Are you there, sir? Sir?
The phone call has been placed by Jonathon, who tells the dispatcher that he's just been shot. When she asks who shot him, he tells her his grandmother. For nearly 3 minutes, he gasps and asks for help, telling her he's dying. His grandmother, he tells her, was gone for now, but as he's about to discover, it's not to get help. What comes next is nothing short of horrifying.
Hello?
Are you there?
I got shot again. Help.
You got shot again? Are they still there?
Yes. Please help.
He said he got shot again. Did Grandma leave and come back? I guess we'll know in a minute.
I just informed them.
Jonathon pleads to his grandmother before the sound of multiple gunshot fire. After crying out in pain, Jonathon says down the phone, "I just got shot again. Help, help." There's a pause before the sound of a woman's screams begin, and a voice shouts repeatedly, "Let go, let go, let go." And then finally, "I'll get you a drink of water." Shortly after 5:30 p.m., West Bloomfield police pull up alongside the manicured lawn of a condo on Brookfield Lane in the quiet, gated community of Maple Place Villas. A neighbor had reported sounds of gunfire. In this enclave of wealthy, mostly retired residents, crime is a rarity, let alone violent crime. But as officers exit their vehicles, they hear 2 bursts of gunfire ring out from the condo. Before they can enter, a woman appears behind the screen door. After following orders to drop her weapon, the petite elderly lady with fading red hair and blood on her clothes steps out the front door. She raises her hands in surrender and announces to police, "I just murdered my grandson," as if...
Wow. I guess that could be considered a admission of guilt. I mean, I don't know what at this point what kind of defense she would have. I don't know.
If this wasn't shocking enough, it's nothing compared to what's to come. Inside the home, officers are confronted by a bizarre scene. Blood and bloodied footprints trail through almost every room of the home. There are blood smears on the walls and furniture. Bullet holes in the walls, shell casings littering the floor. Discarded at the front door is a Glock 17 9mm semi-automatic pistol. Later, during a forensic examination of the house, 19 rounds of ammunition and several magazines will be recovered from the home. Upstairs, officers find 7...
That's a lot of rounds. I wonder if he was shot downstairs and walked upstairs, because I think I remember he was like, it looked like maybe he was in a bedroom or something upstairs. And the blood everywhere, was it from him? Or did the grandma have blood on her? Which I mean, you're going to get blood splatter. It's going to come back on you. I wonder if she's walking through the house, touching things and getting blood on it that way.
17-year-old Jonathon Hoffman. He's lying on the floor, face down, in a pool of blood, with multiple gunshot wounds to his chest, arms, back, and stomach. Most of the shots had been delivered at close range. Paramedics rush him to Bostford Hospital in hopes of saving his life. But by 6 p.m., he has tragically succumbed to his injuries. 2 days later, Sandra Layne is charged with open murder in the shooting of Jonathon and held without bond, which...
Now, I don't know what state this is in, because each state have different terms and terminology for different crimes. I'm assuming that open murder probably means first-degree murder, what most of us are the term we're familiar with.
We'll leave it to a jury to decide whether she is guilty of first or second-degree murder. Okay. She enters a plea of not guilty. Jonathon's family, friends, and neighbors are rocked by grief and disbelief over the shooting. What on earth could have possessed Sandra to shoot and kill Jonathon? The media are quick to get word of the controversial shooting and offer up theories. Word spread that Jonathon had failed the drug test for synthetic marijuana earlier that day. And journalists jump on the narrative of 2 neglectful parents who had dumped their drug-addled teen on their aging parents who had become overwhelmed.
Now, of course, this case dates back to last May. Young Hoffman was living with his grandmother in West Bloomfield Township. Evidence shows that he did have the synthetic drug K2 or spice, a synthetic marijuana, in his system at the time of his death. He had gotten in trouble previously for the same drug, and his death comes on the heels of another high-profile murder in which a young man is accused of killing his father with a baseball bat while high on K2. Sandra Layne's attorney says she felt she had reason to fear for her life.
This was a young man that was dumped on her.
Okay, I'm not familiar with this term K2. Sounds like it's just synthetic marijuana. Let me know in the comments if you know a little bit about this or what it is.
Involved in drugs, that was on probation and was difficult to control.
How do you choose to leave your child with a grandparent if you have these feelings, if you're feeling angry?
I don't know if they remembered what their childhood was like.
A hot topic is the synthetic marijuana itself, known as K2 or spice. Just 2 weeks before Jonathon's death, a teenager named Tucker Cipriano and a friend had smoked the drug before attacking his family, killing his father and injuring his mother and brother. The drug has not yet been banned and is still sold in some gas stations and convenience stores for as little as $10. Meanwhile, reports are coming out that it causes aggression in users. Had the same scenario played out at Sandra's house? Was it her motivation for shooting Jonathon? A tragic case of self-defense. According to the account Sandra would give to the police and later a jury, self-defense was exactly her motivation, or so she would say. Sandra had said that ever since he'd returned to West Bloomfield, Jonathon had been out of control. He was aggressive and defiant, staying out all hours, hanging around teenagers who were heavily into drugs, including spice. Jonathon, she said, was addicted to the drug. No one had told her before he came to stay or warned her of what she was taking on. And one...
Okay, she's saying, she's going to say it's self-defense. And she just said something right then that older people say all the time. If someone uses a drug once or twice, or they drink alcohol once or twice a week, oh, they're addicted, they've got a problem. I hear older people, they go there all the time. And self-defense, and here's something else I'm wondering. Where's grandfather? I don't know, where was he at? And where is he? Maybe we'll find out.
Once he'd arrived, his parents had shown little interest in helping him or helping her in how to deal with him. His dad, in particular, she said, had given up on the boy. Meanwhile, Jonathon would regularly go into rages where he would release his anger on objects, destroying things in his room and kicking in the closet doors.
What kind of destruction you would sit?
In my house or before he came to live?
Let's talk about in your house.
Different house. Jonathan, if we were disagreed over an issue or something in his life was disturbing him, he would take it out on things. He would go as far as breaking his own equipment. He was a computer, I guess you would call him computer geek, since he was a very young. In fits of anger or times when things didn't go his way, would break his own equipment. Monitor. So various technical things he had.
Oh no, is this an interview? Or who's she looking at? Or is this in actual court? Is this court footage? That would make sense because she's looking over there, but she should be looking at the jury. I'm assuming that's what she's doing.
In his room, I don't know what they're called.
How would he break?
He used to use kicking. He would kick in things. He kicked in closet doors. He kicked it on monitor, screen.
Okay, if all of this is true, why didn't the parents or the grandparents, why didn't they get the kids some help? Get him some help. There's a lot of kids, teenagers especially, that have anger issues. And a lot of times they get them on some kind of medication and it really calms them down. I'm not suggesting everyone needs that. I'm just saying this situation, I'm not hearing anything where anyone offered any help for the young man.
Did you replace the monitor?
Yes.
Did you fix the doors?
Yes.
And place the phone?
Yes.
Were you afraid when he did these things?
Yes. I would remove myself and would tell him to calm down, and I was afraid, and I would remove myself until he calmed down.
Police confirmed the account of Jonathon's drug use. On March the 17th, 2011, Jonathon had been pulled over and ticketed for marijuana possession and drug paraphernalia. Later, at a court hearing, he had received a 93-day suspended sentence with 12 months of probation and mandatory random drug tests. Friends of Jonathon's revealed to police that they had been concerned over his use of drugs and had tried their best to discourage him from using them. Sandra had done her very best to get Jonathon to clean up his life, focus on his grades, and follow her rules. But he had defied her at every turn and was volatile, erratic, and violent. Her husband, Fred, confirmed that there had been constant and heated arguments between Sandra and Jonathon since the moment he'd arrived. Several times, Sandra said that she had called the police because Jonathon had been so out of control. She'd also called the school for help, but to no avail. On one occasion, she said, he had been so out of control while high on drugs that hospital staff had to strap him to a gurney. She pleaded with his parents to help her, but his father had not even bothered to come back to Michigan. She began to worry that Jonathon might kill her. She confided in her husband that she was scared of him and his friends. Desperate to keep her and her elderly husband safe and feeling out of options, she purchased a Glock 17 for protection on the chance that Jonathon or his friends attacked them.
You told him that you were fearful of the friends, right? And you had told him that you were fearful to the point that you wanted the jewelry to be hidden, yes?
Yes.
Okay. And you're bringing a gun into your house, yes?
Yes.
A gun is a dangerous weapon, yes?
Yes.
A gun, can cause great bodily harm, yes?
Yes.
On the fateful day of May the 18th, she had driven Jonathon for his drug test that morning. The results had come back positive for spice, and he had been required to come back for a second test later that afternoon. When that test had also come back positive, he had gone into a rage. In the car, he had been cursing and using street language, she said. He had repeatedly kicked the dashboard and grabbed at the steering wheel. 3 times she had to pull over, and once he tried to take the car keys. Once at home, the argument had escalated even further. Worried that he would go to jail, he planned to immediately leave for Arizona and was demanding $2,000 in cash from her and her car. She had refused to give him either. With her husband Fred out walking the dog, she was both terrified and desperate to talk some sense into him. So she had gone downstairs to her bedroom and retrieved the loaded handgun. She told the police, "I wanted him to hear me.
So if all this is true, and this is just what this lady's saying, we don't know if this is the truth. If all this is true, it sounds like the system totally they messed up on this one. They didn't get it right. She said she contacted the school with counselors. That's part of their job. Said she contacted the parents. They didn't do anything about it. But I'm not sure she's telling the truth. Maybe we'll find out.
Him to pay attention to me, that I would not give him the car. I would not let him take the car. I would not let him take the money. He had to listen." She had then climbed up the stairs back to Jonathon's bedroom with the loaded gun, where she found him in the bathroom. Instead of listening to her, he had sworn at her and laughed.
Okay, why did she think she needed to have a gun to go and talk to him? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, why didn't she just leave him alone? Just leave him alone and let him calm down. Sounds to me like she's the aggressor at this point.
Lashed out, kicking her in the stomach and striking her on the head.
You walked into the loft yourself?
Yes, I did.
All right, now you're in the loft.
Yes.
So you walk into the loft, and did you have a conversation with him?
Yes.
What kind of conversation?
It wasn't a conversation. It was arguing.
What is he saying to you?
Swearing. He's yelling.
Is he telling you he's taking the car?
Yes.
Where did he kick you?
There.
Did he strike you?
In the head.
Sorry?
The head.
In the head area? And what happens? Tell us what happens when he kicks you, when it strikes you.
I shot the gun.
How many times did you shoot the gun?
I don't know.
What happens when you shoot the gun?
It was a struggle.
What kind of struggle?
He's running after me.
And what are you doing?
I'm running away.
After a violent struggle and frenzied pursuit around the house, she had fled to the basement to hide.
What are you trying to do?
Get away. Stop him.
So you're trying to get away from him. And why are you trying to get away from him?
Listen. Next time. Scared.
You're scared. What are you scared of?
He's gonna hurt me.
She had finally come out to see if he was all right, but he attacked her again and tried to grab the gun. They had struggled, so she fired to save herself.
You remember yelling, "Let go, let go, let go"?
Yes.
Do you shoot, if you remember? Why are you shooting?
I don't know. You just do. I don't know.
Are you still afraid?
Yes.
It sounded...
Okay, I'm not believing anything this lady's saying. I'm not, and I have no idea. This is a blind reaction. She may be found not guilty. The self-defense may work. I just don't believe her. I really don't.
Like a tale of two overwhelmed grandparents in over their heads, a situation that had ultimately led to Sandra tragically shooting and killing her beloved grandson out of fear that he would hurt or kill her. But was this really how things...
Wait a minute. She shot him. She went and hid in the basement. Don't know what kind of time period. But we do know that Jonathon was on the phone with 911 that we heard earlier, and she had shot me, and then she came back and shot him again. Why did she go back to him? Why did she not call 911 after she shot him and hid in the basement to say, "Hey, my grandson needs help here. He was attacking me, and I had to defend myself, and I shot him. He needs an ambulance." But no, she goes back in there with the gun again and shoots him numerous other times.
Unfolded. As the investigation gained traction, an altogether different picture of events began to emerge, and while just as tragic, it was far more chilling. First, of the questionable statements that Sandra had made about Jonathon's violent nature, extensive interviews with those who knew Jonathon revealed that no one had ever known him to be violent. He had a reputation as a joker and a pacifist. At school, he was more likely to break up fights with humor and wit than to pursue them. Friends claimed to have seen no change in Jonathon in recent months. Those who watched a movie with him the night before the shooting said that he was his same goofy self. Jonathon also had a very slight build. At just 5 feet 5 inches tall, weighing 110 pounds, he was not an imposing hulk of a boy. More or less, he was similar to the size of his grandmother. It would seem that only Sandra had seen Jonathon's violent rages. But even that now came into question. Her husband Fred said that he had seen the pair argue constantly and heatedly, but had never witnessed any violence of any kind, despite being in the house pretty much all of the time. He had noticed Sandra taking on responsibility for Jonathon in a very intense way. She regularly checked in with his teachers about his grades and set strict rules and guidelines for Jonathon. He hadn't followed them, and things had gone off the rails. Fred remembered telling Sandra to send the boy back to Arizona to his parents, but she had refused. Which brings us to her claim that Jonathon had been dumped on her. Her daughter, Jennifer, told police during the 9 months...
Okay, so that answered my question. Of the woman, the grandmother, is it the father or the mother's mom? So it's the daughter's. It's her mom. this lady right here. It's her mom that did the shooting. Okay. But if she didn't want him and all this is going on, why didn't she just say, hey, look, and he's 17. She couldn't throw him out. He's not 18 yet. Why don't you say, hey, call your daughter right here, this girl, this woman on the screen. Why don't you call her and say, hey, you got to come and get him. I'm done. I can't deal with this anymore. I'm done.
Months that Jonathon had stayed with Sandra, he spoke to his mother every day and spent weekends with them once a month. In all that time, her mother had never once mentioned any problems between her and Jonathon, nor hinted that she couldn't cope or ask for help. In fact, quite the opposite. When Jennifer discovered that Jonathon was in trouble with the police for drug possession, she had argued with her mother over what to do with him. Jennifer had wanted to send him to a drug rehabilitation center, given in, and made the fateful decision to leave Jonathon in her care. It was true that police had been called to the home, but only on 2 occasions. On one of those, in March of 2012, Jonathon had called them himself after taking magic mushrooms and becoming paranoid that he was dying. According to the police report, when officers arrived at the home, he had not been aggressive, just scared. He had jumped into one of the police officers' arms. He had then been strapped to a gurney for his own safety. 4 days after the magic mushroom incident, it had been Sandra who had called 911. She told dispatch that Jonathon was in a rage and trying to run away. Meanwhile, Jonathon told the operator that she was trying to get him into her car so he couldn't leave. In other words, she wanted to trap and lock him in her vehicle. Sandra could then be heard saying to Jonathon, "I love you. I want us to get some help." When police arrived at the home on Brookview Lane, they found Jonathon shouting profanities in the street and being derogatory towards his grandmother. Police had offered to take action against Jonathon, but Sandra had insisted that she would handle it, and the incident had been written up as a typical parent-child verbal confrontation that had been resolved. To police, this was seeming less and less like a case of a violent teen spinning out of control, and more like a case of a controlling matriarch determined to exert her will on an unruly teen. But it was the hearing held on April the 12th for drug possession and the probation that followed that seemed to tip Sandra over the edge. Until then, she had been determined to get Jonathon back onto a respectable path. But with graduation just around the corner and her window of opportunity getting smaller by the day, it was looking more and more like a doomed mission. At this point, Sandra had many options. She could have called her daughter. She could have sent her grandson to rehab. Instead, she bought a semi-automatic pistol and took shooting lessons at a gun range. Sandra was determined to win this battle of wills and gain control over her wayward grandson, whatever the cost. 4 days after Jonathon was placed on probation, Sandra Layne applied for a permit to carry a gun, and on April the 18th, she bought herself a semi-automatic 9mm Glock. She told the shop owner that it was for home protection. The gun she chose was a shoot-to-kill weapon. Along with it, she purchased a speed loader and a box of ammunition containing hollow-point bullets, which are designed to cause a maximum amount of damage to a target. She then took shooting lessons at a nearby gun range until she felt proficient at handling it. All the while, she kept her new skills secret from her husband, who had no idea that there was now a gun in the house.
Okay, that's a big deal. That's deception. You know, if she had nothing to worry about, why not tell everyone? Yeah, I bought a weapon. I mean, I live in the South. I guarantee 9 out of 10 homes have weapons in them here. Then this was Michigan, I think. I'm sure Michigan's the same way.
Where they said that Sandy had a gun.
And what was your reaction to that, sir?
I was flabbergasted.
Flabbergasted meaning what?
Thinking that Jonathon had the gun.
So you were surprised that in fact it was your wife. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you know that your wife had gone and gotten a permit to purchase that gun?
No.
Did you know that your wife had, in fact, prior to May 18th of 2012, purchased a gun?
No.
Did you know that your wife had taken or gone to a shooting range and shot or practiced shooting?
No.
On the day of the murder, Sandra and Jonathon had arrived home sometime after 4:30 p.m. During his interview about the day of the shooting, Fred Layne mentioned something that had struck the police as curious. When Sandra had returned home with Jonathon, she had asked Fred to take the dog for a walk and specifically requested that he not return until she'd told him to. They had to stay out so long the dog had become tired and the two sat watching a basketball match.
I was getting tired, and the dog was getting tired.
Okay, all right.
So we watched a basketball game sitting on the grass, and I heard the sirens, the fire department and the police. And I thought to myself, I hope it's not John.
Why had Sandra wanted Fred out of the house? Rather than the actions of a woman in fear of her life, it seemed more like the behavior of someone with a plan that they wanted to act out.
Absolutely, this was a plan. Absolutely. This is absolute murder, in my opinion. And is it just me, or... And tell me in the comments, this right here, what you're seeing right now. Does she look angry? Does she look almost evil? There's a look, the eyes don't lie. There's a look in the eyes that is a little eerie here.
Without interference or possibly a witness. Fred had agreed to go, something which also seemed unlikely if Jonathon had been a raging maniac that Sandra had described. But the really damning evidence against Sandra was still to come. At 5 p.m. that day, Jonathon had answered a call from his friend Max, confirming their plans for that evening. Max told police in an interview that Jonathon hadn't sounded angry or high, but scared. He had been scared about failing the drug screening test and was scared of his grandmother, who he said was so angry she had been threatening to send him back to Arizona. Autopsy results combined with forensic evidence revealed that when the first shot had been fired, Jonathon had been wearing shorts, socks, and standing in his bathroom. He had not been about to leave the house for a quick getaway to Arizona in his grandmother's car with $2,000 of her money. He was scared. He had been getting ready for a night with his friend and had arranged for that friend to pick him up. Sandra claimed that she had been violently assaulted by Jonathon in the head and stomach before she had shot the gun. But in the immediate aftermath of the shooting, she was examined by medical staff at a nearby hospital and found no injuries or marks. When asked if her grandson had hurt her, she gave a definitive answer. No, he's a good boy. He would never hurt us. He would never hurt anyone. Ballistics evidence showed that Sandra had pulled the trigger 10 times in various locations around the house, hitting Jonathon 5 times. 2 of those shots.
So, 10 shots, that's a lot of shots. And she had some training. It said she went and was sort of proficient with the gun. Sounds like he's running and she's shooting at him through the house.
Had been to his back, suggesting he was trying to get away from Sandra as she was shooting. Another had been delivered to his abdomen while he was laying incapacitated on the phone to 911. Blood on the landline phone downstairs was also found to be Jonathon's. He had answered the phone to a neighbor who rang after hearing gunshots. During the call, he told the neighbors that he had just been shot, not exactly the actions of someone chasing down a terrified old lady, but was more of a frightened boy seeking help. Police now believe that rather than chasing Sandra around the house, it was Jonathon being chased by Sandra. At some point, Sandra had gone down to the basement to reload the gun, and it was likely at that moment that Jonathon had gone upstairs to his bedroom to call 911. Smears on the wall suggested that by this point, Jonathon had been crawling. She had then gone back upstairs and discharged her weapon at close range into the boy who was incapacitated on the floor, this time striking him in the stomach. Toxicology reports would offer a final damning blow to Sandra's claim of self-defense. The report revealed that Jonathon had no drugs in his blood at the time of the shooting, and only a metabolite of spice in his urine. A medical examiner would state that the drugs found in his urine proved that it had exited his system and had no effect on his behavior. In other words, Jonathon had been stone-cold sober when Sandra had opened fire on him while standing in his bathroom. During the Oakland County trial, Sandra's defense would argue that Sandra was a big-hearted lady who had taken in a troubled teen when his parents had left him behind. He'd repaid her by taking drugs, getting arrested, and terrorizing her with his violent outbursts, and, on the day of the shooting, had been threatening her to the point that she feared for her life. The gun had been her last resort. She'd only fired when he wouldn't stop, and she was devastated by her actions. She had only ever tried to save Jonathon. The state would counter those claims, arguing that Sandra had plenty of options if she had begun to feel threatened by Jonathon. Instead, she chose to buy a gun. When he'd failed his drug test, she told her husband to leave the house, suggesting premeditation, and then confronted him with a deadly weapon. She had been the one to fly into an uncontrollable rage at her inability to control Jonathon. She had been the aggressor. She had ruthlessly shot him as he fled to different parts of the house, leaving a trail of blood behind him. She had been determined to make him listen. Now she was determined to take his life. Even when he'd thought he was safe, she reloaded her weapon and followed him upstairs to shoot him again.
She hunted down Jonathon Hoffman because...
Yeah, to me, this is, remember they said earlier that open murder was to determine first degree or second degree murder?
He went.
To me, this is definitely first degree murder. She hunted him down like an animal. He's running, trying to get away from her, and she's shooting her own grandson.
Listen.
Prosecutor Paul Walton said, "You don't get to use a gun because somebody's using bad language. You don't get to shoot someone because they raised their voice." Noting that minutes went by before Sandra shot the boy again, he said he had never handled a homicide this cold, this long, and this calculating. The jury rejected Sandra's self-defense claim. On March the 19th, 2013, Sandra Layne was found guilty of second-degree murder in the killing of her grandson. Before her sentencing, Sandra begged and whimpered her way through a long, self-pitying appeal to the judge.
I don't know what else to say. I just don't know. I didn't know on the time that you're not out there to torture us. I have no idea. I have no I'm so shattered and so sad. I haven't seen what.
Her daughter, Jennifer, meanwhile, asked for the maximum sentence.
Sandra Layne is pure evil, and if given the opportunity, would surely kill again. She has no remorse or conscience. Her only concerns are for herself.
During her...
And wow, that was her own daughter saying that about her.
Sentencing, the judge zeroed in on why she didn't call the police or leave the house if she felt threatened.
I wonder if you really felt so violated and so afraid and a need to shoot. Why did you keep shooting on the charge of homicide, second-degree murder, that you served 20 to 40 years in the state prison of Michigan?
To the press, Jennifer Hoffman described her mother as a monster who was obsessed with academic performance and could be evil. It's really hard to comprehend that your own mother could do something like this to your own child. Everything she said in her statement was a lie. She is a complete narcissist and liar. I wish I had seen signs of how evil she was before I left her with my son. I just know that my son is in heaven, and that's a place she'll never see.
Yeah, she's was controlling. She's got big issues. There's some evil there. There really is, like her own daughter said, there is some evil there. Please subscribe to my channel. I'm going to do a lot of these videos, at least 4 per week. Tell your family and friends. And it's going to be true crime documentaries such as this.